Welcome to Cannabis 360, your source for cannabis and psychedelic industry news, interviews, and insights. Visit canna360.ca and sign up to receive free access to the entire Cannabis 360 catalog. In this episode of High Fidelity, we speak with Jenna Perry, Customer Success Manager at Spiffy. Jenna discusses how Spiffy collaborates with cannabis brands to create engaging content that deepens budtender product knowledge, reinforce brand messaging and unique product offerings, and can even help create operational efficiencies within the retail store environment. All right. Hi, Jenna. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good, Connor. Thanks for having me.
Really excited to have you here. Thanks again for joining us. I really wanted to talk about Spiffy. I'm excited to chat about that and the platform that you guys have. But first off, can you just tell me a little bit about your background? I'm always interested in terms of like how people actually got into the cannabis industry in the first place. So yeah, how'd you end up here?
Yeah, I mean, my story is probably a little bit different than some other people's. It kind of just stumbled across the industry. So I have a background in food and beverage with 5 to 6 years across various types of establishments in the restaurant scene. And when I originally applied for a role at Spiffy, it was founded for restaurants. So I kind of was anticipating that being the focus. But then we did transition full throttle at Cannabis, and that's kind of where I stumbled into the industry. And honestly, it's really refreshing working in an industry where we're kind of paving the way. And being the creative, agile person I am, I'm so thankful to have stumbled across the industry when I did.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster, but it's definitely a fun industry to work in. Absolutely. Even though it's changing all the time, there's a lot of, like I said, sort of roller coaster moments in it, but it's still a really fun industry to be in. So you mentioned Spiffy. So you guys came from the beverage, the food and restaurant industry. But yeah, tell me about sort of like the cannabis component of it and sort of your unique approach to cannabis education and training. How does the platform work? What is it all about?
Yeah, so Spiffy is a micro-learning app, and our primary goal is to connect brands with frontline workers across various different types of verticals. So speaking of cannabis specifically, we just want to connect brands with the retailers and help the frontline people like the budtenders learn about the products that they're selling. And it's important to note, like micro-learning is a bit different than traditional learning in general. It's not sitting down and drinking from the fire hose training where you're, consuming like hours of training in one sitting. It really is more so honing in on 5 to 10 modules a week that really shouldn't take any longer than a minute or two to complete each one. And this not only helps with employee engagement, they really like the platform because it's short stints of training, but it also helps with knowledge retaining. So they can retain, if they're looking at 4 different types of pink kush in a week by consuming in small doses and single sittings, I should say. It's easier for them to speak to these key differentiators between those products on the sales floor. And another really important thing is we're not taking away from in-person product knowledge sessions. That's not what we're doing. We're kind of here to kind of facilitate those sessions and following up. If they go into a store, chances are they're only hitting maybe 50% of the team that work there. So by pushing modules on Spiffy to that team, they're able to connect with every single person on that team instead of the 50% that they would have in an in-store visit. So talking about Spiffy specifically, we can dive in later about the difference between free and pro, because we do offer a free platform as well. But we offer, regardless whether it's paid or free, 1,000 plus pre-made cannabis education modules, because at the end of the day, the retailers really should be focusing on their retail operations and their sales. They can't be creating content and monitoring, whether their policies and procedures were signed off on. This is all something that can be done on our platform to allow them to focus on running their store and making money. So I think that pre-made marketplace of content really is different than any other learning platform, because we're all in on cannabis, and that those modules are from LPs directly. They're on Cannabis 101, science behind the plant. It varies on all the content that we offer, but it's there and it's ready for anybody to consume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's super accessible, which I love. It's we do live in a time, I mean, it's almost cliche to say right now, but we have such short attention spans, right? So, having these sort of micro learning opportunities like and brands and that sort of thing, I think really does make a big difference. And I like the fact that you mentioned sort of that it's not trying to replace product knowledge sessions with different LPs or whatever it might be. It's sort of in addition to that, and almost like a refresher and a reminder. And like you said too, like sometimes not all of the staff is there, and so it acts as that follow-up, which I really like. And there are some great brands on there. There's some great content. There's some great content that you guys produce on your own as well. Whether that's like Cannabinoid 101, like Terpenes 101, that sort of thing. So that's great. Now, in terms of like sourcing those different like brands and producers, and kind of getting that content on the platform, what does that process like typically look like? Are they reaching out to you? Are you reaching out to them? Is it sort of a combination of the two?
Well, it's funny. I think, in today's market, centralizing all LP information on one platform, it makes it easier for the budtenders, and they value the education that LPs like push out on Spiffy because that's where they are consuming their product knowledge. So it used to be we were doing a lot of cold outreach to the LPs to try to bring them in, but honestly now it's kind of turned into a lot of inbound because retailers are like, oh, well, we use Spiffy to train our staff. Can we get something on your green crack on Spiffy because that would help us sell it? So now we're seeing a lot of retailers actually helping us build those connections, and ultimately it benefits them at the end of the day because that content's up for their team to consume. So there are various types of content like you mentioned on the platform, but we do offer two kind of categories. So there's like a paid LP that we work with, like a paid partner. So with those partners, their content is phenomenal. It's like visually pleasing. It's visually pleasing. It's a video format, which, like you said already, in today's day and age of like TikTok and Reels, that's like all the rage for budtenders. So we're getting interviews with master growers and we're seeing their cultivation techniques hands-on with a camera. And then for the other batch of content, it's like a free listing format. So just because an LP maybe doesn't have the budget or doesn't value the education that we offer, we still want to make sure that the budtenders have access to train on those products. So Spiffy has a content department that's regularly, scouring the OCS and the AGLC to see what products are new to the market. And then we're creating these free listing strain cards that we can toss up. And that way budtenders are still able to sell the products. It just might not be in the most visually pleasing way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're both really useful, but you can really tell when like an LP has invested in the content. And I remember showing like a few friends and they're like, whoa, like this is actually, quite impressive in terms of like just how visually appealing it looks and sort of the information that's getting put in there. So yeah, absolutely love that. And now in terms of, and it's great too, because like you said, even if maybe a company hasn't invested in, creating those really nice sort of informational packages and content on there, still like budtenders can follow their favorite brands and still get some really useful information, right? And really kind of curate, what's of interest to them and what they like and getting more information on that, which is great. Now, in terms of that, like what sort of content are you seeing that's really resonating with budtenders on the platform?
Yeah, I mean, I think every piece of content does have a place on Spiffy. And you kind of just mentioned it because of that follow feature in the app. People can kind of curate their own learning paths, even if they're, we're seeing budtenders sign up on their own and just consume product knowledge, not even because their manager says that they have to, but because they want to. So they'll pick and choose the content that they like or the brands that they want to learn about, which is really nice. But in terms of the content that I'm kind of hearing budtenders really love, it's the storytelling. It traditionally, I think a lot of brands invested in like product specific assets. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for those because there definitely is on Spiffy, but why the seed was chosen to be grown or why this specific cultivation method was chosen, sitting down with the grower and hearing why they made the decision to kind of grow this type of flower. Sorry, my colleagues in the background out there. But yeah, like those stories really help the budtenders sell those products on the floor, especially when it comes to different price points, right? Like you could get a pink kush that's $30 and you get a pink kush that's $50. Well, typically the consumer's just going to jump to the $30 one because they're like, well, they're the same. But if you understand like, oh no, well, this pink kush is using like patented dry racks and, you know, it's hand picked and it's hand rolled in the pre-rolls, like those things, those stories about why the brand has a higher price point, it really helps the budtenders capture the consumer audience that they're trying to get. So sorry. Yeah.
No, I love that. Yeah, whether something's, you know, hand trimmed, whether it's whole flower going into the pre-rolls, you know, a lot of time you don't know that if you're just purchasing a product. So giving budtenders really that knowledge, that information to communicate that, to communicate those unique product offerings can really go a long way, right? Because if they don't know this story, if they don't know the background, then they're never going to mention it to the customer, right? So you're really giving the tools, putting the tools in their hands to make those informed recommendations that I think are so needed in the industry with just like the sheer amount of SKUs that are available, right? So standing out, being unique is so important in that regard. So yeah, I absolutely love that. Now, in terms of, I know that Spiffy does a lot of, you know, gathers a lot of data, looks at a lot of metrics. So when you're looking at sort of the success of a particular module or what like really budtenders are engaging on the platform and sort of how retailers can use that data, you know, what's sort of the advantage of that and how are you seeing retailers using that data to their advantage?
For sure. I mean, on a platform like ours, I mean, we're approaching like the 4,500 budtenders on the platform mark. So that's like a really great feat for my team, predominantly focused in Canada, but nationally, we do have a presence. So that's really nice. But we honestly, we're constantly looking at like engagement. And that's not to say a completion, that's really like a submission on our platform, right? So whether it's a pass or a fail on a module, they're opening the app and they're coming in and they're engaging with the platform. And that's something that we can go to the LP side and say, hey, we have these people that are engaging and they want to learn about your brand, right? Especially now that in November, we released that follow feature in the app. And that's really cool too, because people are following brands and reaching out to us saying, you know, like I did this brand's all their content and now I want to do more. And then we can follow up with the brands and say, these people want to learn about you, right? Whereas on Instagram, it might not be as hands-on and yeah, maybe they follow the brand, but it's not going to be for educational purposes. It's more so for, you know, the culture and the branding and just the experience of social media in general. But what I really love, I work predominantly with the retail side. I work a lot with our key accounts. And I love when they compare engagement to their sales data. So for example, maybe they got a SKU in last week and it really didn't sell much. Then they release a module on Spiffy about it. And the following week, they saw their sales increase. And that doesn't, you know, I mean, their sales increase on that specific SKU. So it's really cool to see the correlation between empowering the team members with the ability to sell the product, right? Like if sales aren't going up on this particular SKU, maybe the team members just aren't comfortable enough to sell it. I do have like some experience in retail myself. I worked at Sephora and it was a very similar situation, right? Like if you didn't try it and you didn't see the benefit of it, then it's really hard to make a recommendation. So I think when they're doing a product knowledge module on a certain strain, it just enables them to speak to the key points and sell to the right consumer. So that's kind of the metrics that I really love. And in terms of engagement, like we're just really hoping every user kind of comes in and attempts one module a week. Like that's really what good looks like, is just coming in and opening it up and doing one thing. But on average, specifically in cannabis, this is a much higher average than on the restaurant side. We're seeing 10 modules completed a week. And that's, you know, that's for some of the really top accounts. But on restaurant side, it was sometimes a challenge even to get to one. So it's really cool to see some people work in cannabis just because it's a job, but some people really love it and they're really passionate. And we can kind of enable them to fuel that passion through that follow and self-curated learning feed.
Yeah, I mean, cannabis users are passionate. I think that's pretty well known. And I think most people like working in that retail environment, it's because they love cannabis, right? They want to be in the industry, they want to be working with cannabis. And I think something like education really does, empower, right? It empowers people. People want to learn more. They want to, improve their knowledge and skills and really get better at their job. So I think Spiffy really does a great job in terms of enabling that. Now, in terms of some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing for cannabis retailers, so, I think there's like a number of different things, and we've chatted about a few of these in the past as well together, but, like a lack of education, just like the sheer number of different SKUs that are out there. So in your opinion, like how does Spiffy sort of help solve some of these problems?
For sure. I mean, I think a lot of, cannabis doesn't really have a playbook yet. Like we're still so new, but I think there's some playbooks from other industries that we can kind of adopt. And, showing that you value your team members, I think that's a really, really big thing that the industry right now is lacking. Like turnover is extremely high for the budtenders. And imagine being a retail manager, like the investment of training someone and having them leave, like it's hard, right? But at the end of the day, career development and enabling your team to kind of level up and not only develop skills that are amazing for this industry, but that they can, transfer into their actual personal lives, or maybe if they go to a different industry someday, they can bring it with them, right? Like career development in general, and I'm talking about education primarily, it really makes a difference. And I think that's what we've seen is some of the retailers that we partner with, they have consistent staff all the time. They don't want to leave because they feel valued and they feel like they're constantly leveling up personally. Even if it's not at their company, they're constantly getting better. And that's kind of, I think, what everybody should strive for is to be, 1% better every single day. And the retailers that enable their teams to do that, I think that they're going to kind of, make it through some of the tough times that retailers are facing today.
Mm-hmm. And be successful. And I like what you said too earlier about, that personal experience with the product, right? So if a budtender starts, following a particular brand and they do like a really great job of explaining the unique product offering through the app, then, that will, I think, encourage people to seek that product out, right? And try it themselves and, see if it was, if they saw that value sort of translate and those unique offerings like in person, right? So I think that's a huge thing. Like in order to make recommendations, like you need to have tried something yourself or unless it's impossible, right? Like you can't recommend someone go to a restaurant unless you kind of tried it yourself, right? So that's the same thing when you're recommending cannabis products. And that's why it's so important to have sort of this education on the back end. And then that hopefully leads to them getting their own experience with the product. And that will just sort of complete the entire, it'll come sort of full circle, right? And again, just help budtenders make those informed recommendations, which I think is so key.
I actually have one other thing I just want to add in there that we've also started offering, because speaking to your point about kind of like trying the products, like it's not possible even for me, like I can't try every product on the market, like it's impossible, but we do offer product sampling through our app as well. And this is mostly through contests that we run. So because we aren't associated with, we're not giving them on behalf of LPs, like we're completely compliant here by giving away samples for training. And really, people can just follow this brand in our app. And as long as they successfully pass a module, they're entered in a draw where we pick 3 people every week that can select any product they want to try on the market that we give to them. Traditionally, we try to obviously get them to sample products of like some of our paid partners because we love their products. But at the end of the day, it's completely up to them. And it's nice being able to offer them the opportunity to try things that maybe they wouldn't be able to without us. So
really, yeah, I didn't know you guys did that. That's amazing. Yeah. That is actually so cool. And I know, like for example, in Ontario, we recently, like the AGCO sort of clarified the rules around sampling. which sort of allowing it to happen. And that's so cool that you guys have figured out a way to integrate that as well into the platform through the contest. I mean, that's amazing. I didn't know that that was happening. So
I'll show you after. I'll show you after.
Yeah. I need to start cleaning some more modules, I guess. Yeah. I assume, do you have to be a budtender? Is there sort of like a vetting process there? Yeah.
You do have to be part of a retail team, but it's really cool. We post the winners on our social media every Wednesday, I believe we post the winners. But it's great to see it's, every week it's a different retailer that has a team member winning. And I think that's kind of the goal. Like ultimately, if we're not connecting retailers with LPs, like we don't exist. So that's what we're here to do. And we are going to, try every avenue to do it. And sampling so far, it's been working really great. And the community of budtenders on the platform love it.
Yeah. I mean, free weed, right? No one can complain about that. So yeah, we chatted a lot about like the platform itself, but I know that Spiffy also has sort of tools and resources on the back end that helps assist retailers. And like, I know that this is obviously really big when we're talking about the production and operation side of the industry. We have like seed to sale tracking and all of that. But yeah, how does that work in terms of Spiffy? Because I know there's sort of like policies and procedures and training and stuff like that. So yeah, can you provide some details on that aspect of the Spiffy platform as well? Because it might not be something that everyone's familiar with.
Totally, yeah. I mean, let's just like draw the line in the sand and I'll kind of explain the difference between the free platform and the pro platform. So the free platform, any budtender, any retail team can sign up today, download the app and begin following brands and pushing content from our extensive marketplace of pre-made cannabis education modules. The reporting is there. It's just a bit basic, but the functionality is basically the same on the free and the pro. The only difference is with the pro, retailers have the ability to upload their own custom content. So this could be product reviews from their team members that they want to push out to the whole company. It could be their standard operating procedures, their cell phone policies. And what I really love is the back end of Spiffy, like the dashboard that admins get to see. It's almost like a digital filing cabinet. You could see, Connor took the Pink Kush module 10 times and he failed it 10 times. I took it 2 times and I passed it right on the second time. Well, my sales are a bit higher because I got it right on the first time. I probably understand it a little bit more, right? So the back end is such a powerful tool for admins. And on the pro side, it's, like I said, a digital filing cabinet. Like no more getting people to sign off a printed handbook of what their expectations are for their role. It's all digital and it's on the system. And then you have a true or false question after saying, I agree and acknowledge to follow the standard operating procedure. They select true. It's basically like them signing off that they understand a policy. So from a compliance standpoint, it's also very useful on an HR standpoint. We work a lot with HR departments for the bigger companies just to help them make sure that their policies and procedures are being followed and everything's being trickled down right to the budtenders. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's so important because I think on the operation side, like we talk about SOPs ad nauseum, right? And it's sort of part and parcel with that side of the industry. But I think on the retail side, it's sort of often forgotten that SOPs are so important there, policies are so important there. So if there's this, again, a digital way of managing that, I think it's a huge resource for this part of the industry, right? Retail specifically. So that's great. Well, thank you so much, Jenna, for joining me and educating me on Spiffy and what you guys offer. And I highly recommend everyone checks it out. We'll have a link down below to download the app. And what's the best way to get a hold of it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can always reach out to me personally if you have any questions about the platform or wanting to see a demo. My email is jenna@withspiffy.com, so it's pretty simple. But also you can check out withspiffy.com online, and that's our website. So you can also find lots of valuable links on there. We have a knowledge base that kind of walks people through what the platform looks like and the tools that we do offer. And I like to mention that, being a fairly new company, we are always open to feedback as well. So a lot of retailers come to us from other LMS platforms, and they bring, ideas saying this was a tool that we had on another platform that we'd love to see on Spiffy. And the joys of being such an agile, versatile team is that we can develop these things pretty quickly and push them out. So we're always looking for product feedback, and we're always welcoming new users too. So always reach out if you have any questions. I'd be happy to help.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely check it out. Reach out to Jenna if you guys have any questions. And like she said, they're always looking for feedback also. So thanks again for joining us, Jenna. Really, really appreciate it.
No problem. Happy to be here. Thanks, Connor.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of High Fidelity. For access to the entire Cannabis 360 catalog, subscribe at canna360.ca or visit our YouTube channel, Canna360.